I'm Dr. Erin Macdonald. I'm an astrophysicist and a science consultant for Star Trek. So I'm kind of a rocket scientist by day, warp drive expert by night.
Hey, Erin, how you doing? Terrell Royster here, Big Gold Belt Media. How you doing today?
Hi, Terrell. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for setting this up. It looks like we just missed each other at San Diego Comic Con because I was definitely there from like Wednesday to Sunday. So I see you had a panel that I definitely missed. So I'm
I had
glad.
a couple. It's fine. There's a lot going on at Comic-Con.
Yeah. We either walked past each other in like a different room. I feel like I was doing press rooms the entire week, so I just like time for nothing. How was your experience there though? Like how getting to interact with like fans and everything out there?
It was great. It was great. It was very busy. As you know, Comic-Con is a lot. It's like all of
Yeah,
Hollywood just comes down and
yeah,
crams themselves into a small space for a couple of days.
right.
Um, but yeah, I had a wonderful time. My highlight was the Star Trek Prodigy panel that we
Mm.
had. Um, I got to I got a shout out from Kate Mulgrew, who was my captain. So
Yeah, Janeway. Yeah.
that was a big deal.
Yeah.
so, so I won. I won Comic-Con. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was a good time. I hope you had a good time too.
Yeah, like I said, when I got home, I slept so good. It's so much walking. It's so much walking. Like, oh my
Exactly.
goodness. Erin, for those who don't know you and your background, you mind giving us like a little bit of explanation to the people like who you are, what you do?
Absolutely. So, yeah, I have a PhD in astrophysics. I sort of went down the academic research track. I studied gravitational waves and general relativity. Went into teaching, then went into engineering because teaching couldn't pay my bills,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
yeah.
But I started giving talks at conventions because I love teaching. I love engaging with fans. I'm a super nerd myself. And so that kind of led me to LA, meeting people on the convention circuit, which got me into science advising. So for the last, oh my gosh, 5 years now, I've been working as the science advisor for the entire Star Trek franchise.
How cool is that, man? I just, I read your bios and stuff so many times, and I've seen so much of your work, and I was just like, how do you even fall into this? Like, nobody could sit at home and say, how do you go from where you were teaching to literally making sense of space and science fiction? Like, I mean, I mean, do you still get kind of giddy, like the reaction to that, or is this has it gone in the full job mode, or you still feel like a kid in the candy store with this?
There's occasions where I will get lost in the fog of the work and I will end up, yeah, sort of losing sight of the fact that it's freaking Star Trek. then and then anytime I see that, my partner will be like, just watch start an episode of Star Trek Voyager or like, watch an old episode. And then I'm like, oh man, I do get to work on this franchise. This is pretty great. So I don't think it's sunk in. It'll probably sink in many years from now, but right now I'm trying to enjoy it as much as I can.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, it's so much. I mean, it's a big franchise, and especially with you having your hands in so much stuff. Um, how do you? I guess like with there being so many projects now with Paramount, with Lower Decks, being in this last season, we got the Prodigy on Netflix, or it's Paramount to Netflix.
Yeah.
With there being so much now, and like I said, Star Trek getting its own like hour panel at Comic Con at Hall H, because there's so much Star Trek now, where we've gone from a point where we didn't know if we were going to get anything else, another movie. We don't know what's going on with that Chris Pine situation to now we got so much that we talk about. How do you find the balance between, advising on all these shows?
Anytime I start on a show, I have to find where on the spectrum of science to fiction we're going to land
Right.
because every show is slightly different. Discovery is very different from Lower Decks, which was very
Oh,
different
yeah.
from
Yeah.
Prodigy. And so once I land on that, then that helps sort of hone in where I'm always invested. Investment is the wrong word, but like how dialed in I need to be to make the science really what the work level is going to be, I guess is the best way to phrase it. Because it, like I said, it varies. But what I love the most is just the variety. I love the variety. I get a call from Lower Decks is going to be very different from Strange New Worlds, which is different from Starfleet Academy. And so, yeah, but it's fun.
Yeah, I know. I think it was like a Comic Con or two ago. I want to say it was like, I want to say like a year or so ago, where I want to say it was like a Paramount party or something like that, and like all of like the Star Trek people like were all in one room, and
I
I just
was
happened.
there.
Yeah. And
I
I just
know what you're
happened to
talking
be,
about.
I just happened to be there talking, and I didn't realize who I was talking to at first, but it was like the son of Gene, like Roddenberry or whatever. And I was like, oh my God, I'm sitting here talking to you about Star Trek this whole time and had no clue that that was you. Cause like he has like a different, it was dark in there for one. And then I didn't realize, so he was like, oh yeah, man. He was like, I'm glad that you guys, you really liking Lower Decks and Prodigy. I was like, yeah, I was like, oh my God, you're the creator. And it was just a cool time. But like they said, just to see the fandom grow,
Yeah.
just so much. I want to jump back to what you were talking about teaching. You have a degree in astrophysics, which you would think it's made up, but it's a real thing. Not only do you get to, like I said before, you have a really cool job in this media industry, but you have a whole degree that you can fall back on at any time. How is that? Do you feel like? I mean, one, did you feel like did you ever shoot yourself to this point where you are now with that degree, and do you still have the love and the passion, obviously you do with the show, for going back to teaching?
Yeah, I really deeply love teaching. That's the thing I enjoyed the most. I enjoyed doing research. It's just the career of an academic like wasn't for me.
Right.
And going into engineering, it was a good career, but it was a 9 to 5, it's a job. And with this, it's funny because I left academia partly because it was so unstable as a career. It's like you
Mm.
had to move every few years until you get the long stretch goal of like becoming a tenured professor, right? But it's a tough life before that. And then somehow I ended up in like the only industry least secure, less secure than academia, which is the entertainment industry. So, yeah, I mean, for me, what I'm grateful is like, yes, there's a hustle. Yes, it's a lot of work. It's hard, but it's something I love and I'm passionate about. And it also gives me the opportunity, like you said, to continue teaching, to go to conventions, to go give panels and to engage with the public and still get people inspired by science. I think that was the thing I was most scared of when I left academia was that I wasn't going to be able to inspire future generations and I feel like I still get to do that. So that makes me really happy and proud.
That's cool, man. Because definitely, like you said, in this age now where teaching just does not get the respect that it deserves anymore. With everybody be able to hit a curve with online teaching and pretty much just pretty much almost teach themselves to a certain extent. And like the money's just not there either. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing is like if you made that look a little bit more pretty, there'd be a lot more teachers that'd be willing to endure what they have to go through with the kids of today, the adults of today. Because I'm saying you can talk to anybody anything if the price is right. And I don't want to shoot at any teachers that hey, you do this to for the craft, do this to teach, not for the money. But at the end of the day, those bills
Gotta pay bills.
turn your mindset somewhere else easily.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, when I was teaching at community college, I had to work at Starbucks in the morning shift just to kind of make ends meet. And I'm not a good teacher if I'm working 3 jobs, I'm not able to give that time and investment. So it's
how good
hard.
of a barista were you though?
Not great. I was
Oh
on the
man,
register. They
I
put
feel
me on
like
that
that.
register.
I feel like that'd be so easy for you with the background that you have. Like you know proper amount of foam to put in, like the coffee blend, stuff like that. Like oh my
Not
god,
when they give you 40 seconds to make it.
oh my, I'm definitely gonna go up there and try to find your employee of the month picture on the wall of that Starbucks. um, Jumping back into just the realm of Star Trek for a second, I did see that you had some guest roles on a couple of those shows.
Yeah.
What was the conversation there that get you into doing that?
I'm really honored that they did that. I get to play myself, and that came from in Star Trek Prodigy. We're creating a show for kids. Like it's all ages. Everyone I think can enjoy Prodigy, but the big target was to try to inspire kids and to try to give them that inspiration that Star Trek has touched so many of us with. And they had a character, Rock Talk, who was a young girl who wants to become a scientist. And so I, of course, was very attached to Rock Talk and help the writers as much as I could
Right.
with this character and her story and her dialogue and all of that. And so at the end of season 1, the showrunners were kind enough to say, like, she has to meet Dr. Erin, like we have to have Rock Talk meet Erin at Starfleet Academy. And so I voiced it, they made up the likeness of me, and I still was like, I'm not going to believe it until it's out. Like, I'm not going to
Oh
believe it until I
man.
see it on the screen in public. And then that happened. And then flash forward to like season 2 we're working on, and it's a big time travel story and it's complicated and hard. And they were like, we need like a Mr. DNA video. Like, let's have Dr. Erin explain time travel to the audience.
The whole Jurassic Park. That is so cool.
Exactly.
Like to be in the canon of this entire thing is like a staple in this universe now. Is so cool. Like
It's
just to,
insane. Yeah.
have you gotten figures yet or anything like that? Have they got any merchandise?
No merchandise yet, but I did commission a screen accurate cosplay uniform. So I do
Oh
have
my
my own
goodness.
Starfleet uniform.
Oh, next Comic-Con, I'm gonna see you with the Starfleet. That is so cool, man. As so as your job as consultant on the show, you have to make the science make sense, right? Even though nobody's really questioning it at the same time, but nobody's asking, oh, how does time travel? But it is cool that through Star Trek we're getting a bit of Bill Nye here. You know what I mean? Because I feel like we're missing that now. Like we don't really have a lot of those shows anymore. Really try to teach kids like science and stuff. And I'm glad through this show that I'm seeing through a couple episodes, you're starting to see that more. Like, okay, they actually explain how certain things work. I mean, look, you're pretty much raising the generation now off of Star Trek Prodigy, but how much of this can you make sense using I guess your consultant here to the show? Like how much, like it's like 50-50, like a 70-30 ratio here, like
Oh, in terms of like getting the science right and
yeah.
teaching through that? Yeah. I mean, the big thing is, Star Trek just has a legacy of leaning into the science. Like you said, people aren't watching it necessarily and critiquing all of the science. But my main job is to make sure we don't say anything wrong. At the end of the day, like that's the
Right.
most
It's always
important
that
job.
one guy. It's always
Always one. There's
yeah.
always one. And you know what? Star Trek fans, bless them, I am one of them, but they check the math. And
Episode
so
203. Yeah.
because I also write all the equations when you see equations on the screen, and they
Oh
will
wow.
stop it and check it, and so no pressure, right? But I think the point though is I think like a lot of people were inspired, and I hope more people continue to be through Star Trek, and especially Star Trek Prodigy, is that you see something cool like in episode 3 of Prodigy, it starts out 1 and 2 are very sort of like Clone Wars, high action, high octane, like very Star Wars vibe. And then in episode 3, they're like, boom, we're watching Star Trek. They're like, we are surrounded, like we are in a binary star system, surrounded by a white dwarf and a red giant. We're falling into the gravity well. And all I can hope is that some kid out there goes, that's really cool. Like, I wonder if that's real. And they look up and find out that a red giant is real. And these
Yeah.
sort of, things do exist. And so it's just about creating that spark, I think. And a lot of times we don't have the bandwidth to give the scientific explanation and to give the long dialogue, but as long as there's a backbone of it that the writers are able to play off of, then it feels like it makes sense. The audience is with you, and that's the sweet spot to hit.
That, oh my god. Again, if I didn't say it enough, your job is really cool, right? Like man, again, like I said, just jumping back to just the teaching aspect of it, and being able to still use that degree that you pay for in a different form.
Still paying for
Right.
it.
It's like I said, it's super cool. Erin, would you consider yourself a celebrity now?
Oh, no.
Okay.
Um, but I think like if my career ends here, I feel pretty good about it.
It's a good write off, right? It's a good closing chapter. That's the movie.
Exactly.
Have you had friends and family in your life just really just say, man, that's really acknowledge your work. That's really cool, like stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, my parents are not sci-fi fans. My dad is really glad I still have that PhD if I
Yeah,
ever need it. So, just from a security standpoint. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people in my life are just really happy that it's me, that they know how much I love TV. They know how much like I talk about TV. I used to just invite people over to watch TV because I thought that's what you do. And people are like, no,
yeah,
like,
do
not everyone
something.
does that. So just, I think people are just happy that I'm in the right place. It's worked out, you know?
Yeah, like you said earlier, I mean, it only takes one person, one thing to inspire somebody. I mean, you look at the Olympics and how many little boys, little girls see their favorite person on TV. They have the representation of that person on TV now. There's just not one thing anymore. So what you're doing now, like I said, through the show and so much, it's going to inspire some kid to pick up where you left off, or take it beyond, like you said. Because I mean, even though it is a fictional show, it's still a lot of inspiration to get certain things, because as we are now, life imitates art. And the majority of Star Trek, everything we have now is because of Star Trek or another show. So with you putting the math in the show and doing a lot of what you're doing, I mean, we should get those flying cars next year, hopefully. You know what I mean? So we make sense of that. I'll wrap it here with this final question. With everything that you have accomplished so far, what do you want people to take away from your work that you've done so far?
Someone at a Star Trek convention compared me to Julia Child, said that I'm like the Julia Child of science. And that was the highest honor anyone had ever paid for me, because I'm a big fan of Julia Child. But what I loved about her, she had PBS shows, she made French cooking accessible to people, in the 60s and in the 70s, and made it accessible. But she was her genuine, authentic self. There's lots of funny videos of her screwing up her recipe or dropping her food or whatever. Yeah. And so it's like that is what I hope to convey with myself too, is like, you can be a scientist, but you can be heavily tattooed, super into heavy metal, like a little bit of a goth chick, and like you can be all of these different things and also be a scientist and make mistakes and find your path. I try to talk honestly about my career journey and the highs and the lows. And so I hope people just find it relatable, find my career relatable and hopefully inspiring, but at least they see that we're multifaceted human beings,
Nothing has a set look anymore for what you think you're going to expect. You know what I mean? For what you think a person's career is, what they are, anything. So everything is thrown out the window now. So, well, look, Erin, I appreciate it. Please, I appreciate doing this interview with me today. Keep me posted about that Doctor Who crossover, because I know that's coming. I've heard some information about that at Comic-Con. Keep me posted on the Doctor Who. And hopefully you start consulting with BBC on that too.
Oh my God, if Russell T Davies, I will answer that phone call, sir, if you're listening.
Put the word out there, guys. Russell, she's trying to work. She's trying to get over on the other side. Erin, thank you so much for this interview. I appreciate your time today.
Thanks, Terrell. I appreciate it too.
Thanks.